Before we start, I would like to invite Nicholas Howie to deliver Welcome to Country. Let me briefly introduce Nicholas. Nicholas Howie is a proud Darug man from the Burrabungrungo clan near the Richmond Basin area, and is our Western Sydney University student in his second year of studies to become a high school physics teacher. Nicholas has always had a love for teaching and learning with others, and currently works as a school learning support officer at a high school in Lower Mountains. From a very young age, and he's still very young, Nicholas learned that one's knowledge is only as good as one's ability to share it with others. And he seeks to apply this to every aspect of his life. Nicholas believes that our society will not advance if understanding and knowledge are hoarded only by a few selected people. He advocates that knowledge should be tossed around with reckless abandon, and so our experiences and understanding are broadened by as many diverse perspectives as possible. Please welcome Nicholas Howie to deliver Welcome to Country.
Bujari Gumura, good afternoon. As mentioned, my name is Nicholas Howie. I study here at Western Sydney University as a high school physics teacher in training, but I am also a proud Aboriginal man from the Burrabungrungo clan within the Darug Nation, and I'm here this afternoon to welcome you to country. Country means many different things depending on who you are. For me, it's more than a place, more than home, it's alive. We are part of an incredible ecosystem, with each part dedicated to the health of our Nura, country. If one part of that ecosystem is acting up, our Nura will become sick. Traditionally, Aboriginal people act in a similar way to the white blood cells in your body. Stay with me. Our role is to keep the peace, ensure emu doesn't overpopulate the plains and Waratah has what it needs to grow. Realistically, it's not possible for one person to manage the health of every plant and animal in this ever-changing land. And so, we are given totems. Each person has their own set of totems that they are responsible for. These are our spiritual connection to country made practical. This set of plants and animals are in our care, but they also look out for us. You see, unlike white blood cells in your body, we are cared for by country as well, through our totems. They become, in a way, our family. Through this spiritual family, we are able to communicate with our Nura and ensure the delicate balance is maintained and country remains healthy. Now, when you hear things like this, it's easy to see Aboriginal culture as only being for a select group of people. It's easy and wrong. You are just as connected to this land as I am. This is just as much your home as it is mine. You may not know your totems, but this country is still your responsibility. I recently wrote a poem with a friend which sums it up well. Country loves you most, your gum sapling on black soil. For those of you who are relatively new to Aboriginal culture, see this as an opportunity to learn, and perhaps even take part in this beautiful ancient culture. Country loves you most. You are a sapling gum tree, learning to grow in black soil, Aboriginal country. For some, these are your first steps into a culture of place, and Nura welcomes you. Caring for country is no longer the sole responsibility of Aboriginal people. Our Mother Earth will tell you what she needs, and she speaks. Are you listening to yourself? So Warami, welcome. Welcome not just to country, but to culture as well. There is so much to learn. I also think that it's poetic that we're meeting today in the Institute for Australian and Chinese Arts and Culture. Both of these nations have some of the most ancient culture in the world. And in this place, we come together to celebrate and pay our respects to culture that is almost as old as our Mother Earth herself. So I thank you. Didjurigo, Yana Janawi Bubuwu Ingami. Thank you for walking with me and strengthening my spirit. Warami Tanura, welcome to country, welcome home.
Thank you so much, Nicholas, for such a beautiful delivery of a welcome to country. We are so privileged to have you with us today. The exhibition Red Heart of Australia is a very special exhibition produced and curated by the National Museum of Australia, featuring 8 outstanding paintings by Indigenous artists from across Central Australia, selected from the National Museum's permanent collection. The exhibition was first shown in China's National Art Museum in late 2021, and we are very honored and thrilled to present this exhibition at our art space on campus. We are also very privileged and confident to present this position because we have the support from our university's Office of Indigenous Leadership, led by our Deputy Vice-Chancellor, Professor Michelle Trudgett. Professor Trudgett is an eminent higher education leader, and her significant contributions to the sector have been recognized through many prestigious awards she has received, including the National NAIDOC Scholar of the Year Award, the Neville Bonner Award for Teaching Excellence, and the University of New England Distinguished Alumni Award. Professor Trudgett currently serves as the chair of the University's Australia Deputy and Pro Vice-Chancellor Indigenous Committee. She has also served as the chair of the Indigenous Committee of the Australian Research Council. Professor Trudgett has been a chief investigator on 4 Australian Research Council ARC grants. She has developed an international reputation as a leading Indigenous Australian scholar whose research provides insight into Indigenous participation in higher education, focusing on Indigenous leadership and governance in higher education. Professor Trudgett is particularly passionate about leading strategic initiatives that empower Indigenous people and communities. Please welcome Professor Michelle Trudgett, the Deputy Vice-Chancellor of Indigenous Leadership at Western Sydney University, to give the opening speech.
Thanks, Jing, and good afternoon, everybody. I would also like to acknowledge that we are meeting on the lands of the Barramadigal people of the Darug Nation today, and to pay my respects to their elders past and present, and to any other Indigenous people in the room, but particularly thank you, Nicholas, for welcoming everybody here to your country, your beautiful country. I was just telling people earlier that I've known young Nicholas since he was this tall, and to stand up here after he speaks with a beautiful welcome to country is always a hard act to follow, so please bear with me. I'd like to acknowledge that today we've got a series of VIPs with us, starting with the externals. So we have Professor Mabel Lee of the University of Sydney, Paul McDonald, who's a curator and artist, Stephanie Lowe, who's the CEO of the Foundation for Australian Studies in China, James Bradley, who's a filmmaker, Daepeng Liu, who's an artist, Dr. Dongwang Fan, who's an artist and art historian. We also have a number of colleagues here from Western Sydney University, notably Professor Yu Chan Lan and Professor Brian Stout and Dola Merilis. So welcome everybody. We are delighted and thrilled that the Institute for Australian Arts and Culture, fondly referred to around here as IAC, has received the opportunity to host and present this very special art exhibition, Red Heart of Australia, curated by the National Museum of Australia. It features the stunning, beautiful paintings created by the Indigenous artists and collected by the National Museum of Australia. As the Senior Indigenous Curator of the National Museum of Australia, Dr. Margot Nawa-Neal states, and I quote, "These paintings are a visual tethering to the Red Heart of Australia and the huge monolith called Uluru. The Aboriginal Australian artists who created them used the colour red to express their relationships to country, family, bloodlines, ritual, and spirituality." Fantastic quote. Having this exhibition of Indigenous art on display over NAIDOC Week, which will take place from the 2nd to the 9th of July, makes this exhibition even more special and meaningful. I would like to thank IAC and the National Museum of Australia for producing and presenting this amazing collection. Western Sydney University is a national leader in Indigenous education. We have an ambitious 2020 to 2025 Indigenous strategy, and I'm really pleased to share that in NAIDOC Week, we'll be launching our 2023 to 2032 Indigenous Futures Decadal Strategy. I believe that this makes us the only institution in Australia to have both a short-term and a long-term Indigenous strategy. Now, in February this year, we received the wonderful news that Western was successful in our application to the state government's West Invest scheme to build an Indigenous Centre of Excellence here at the Parramatta South Campus. We received the largest grant under this scheme, a whopping $78.5 million. This landmark building will be a place where everybody can gather to learn more about Indigenous knowledge and culture. It will not only be a place of belonging for our staff and students, but also the wider community. We are in the process of commencing a national design competition where we hope to inspire leading Indigenous architects and design professionals to create something this world has never seen. The building will be a place of inspiration and of connection, hosting a number of different spaces, including a gallery space where we will showcase incredible exhibitions just like this one. In short, the new Indigenous Centre of Excellence will be an incredible space for the people of Western Sydney. Western Sydney University has once again been named the #1 university in the world in the 2023 Times Higher Education University Impact Rankings, the only global performance table that assess universities against the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Western Sydney University topped the list for 2023 from close to 1,600 institutions from 112 countries. Very impressive. Being the leading education institution in Greater Western Sydney, Western will continue making impact in promoting First Peoples leadership in teaching and in learning. We will continue to deliver outstanding work in social justice, and this is something I'm very passionate about. We are committed to standing up against social injustice and inequality. Discriminations based on race, gender, colour of skin and sexuality, through constantly invigorated and innovative education and through celebrating diversity. The Institute for Australian and Chinese Arts and Culture at Western Sydney University has generated strong impact and influence on campus and in communities through its commitment to promoting and celebrating the diversity of arts and cultures and to making knowledge accessible. I sincerely congratulate IAC and its director, Professor Jing Han, on the production of a Chinese version of the Protocols for Using First Nations Cultural and Intellectual Property in the Arts, published by the Australian Council for Arts. This key document provides a comprehensive guide that contains the principles and protocols which have been applied nationally and internationally to Indigenous Australian cultural heritage. The protocols guide and support respectful and meaningful collaborations with First Nations artists and curators. So, on behalf of Western Sydney University, our Indigenous staff and our Indigenous students and the broader community, I wish the Red Heart of Australia exhibition the biggest success. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for this inspiring speech. It's wonderful. And again, it's such a privilege and honor for us to have Michelle here. And this is the book that Michelle mentioned, and that's the Protocols for Using First Nations Arts and Culture Property and Collaboration with them. And it listed 10 fundamental principles, which are very important to understand, not only understand Indigenous arts and culture, but also how actually collaborate with First Nations artists and cultural creators. We are very appreciative of this wonderful exhibition produced by the National Museum of Australia, and we are especially grateful to the National Museum's team that have been working very closely, Adrian Hu, Heidi Elliott, and Luana and Nadia, for their very important and much appreciated guidance and professional assistance to me and my team in successfully presenting and installing this exhibition. Today, we are very honored to welcome Ronnie Worm, head of a visitor experience at the National Museum of Australia. Ronnie has extensive senior management experiences across the Canberra region over the past 2 decades, having led diverse teams, implemented significant change in arts, government and community settings, and delivered high-quality visitor experiences, most recently as the CEO and artistic director of Tarawonga Arts Centre for the past 8 years. Ronnie has successfully built the reputation, services and community presence of the Arts Centre. During her first years in Australia, she had the privilege of working on country for First Nations women, children and young people in the Western Desert and Pilbara region of WA, coordinating a range of community programs. Now please welcome Ronnie Worm to give a special speech for this opening.
Thank you very much, Professor Ham. Thank you for inviting me today. My name's Rowney, and I am representing my distinguished colleagues from the National Museum of Australia, Dr. Matthew Trinka and the amazing Dr. Margot Nawa-Neal, who has curated this exhibition for the National Museum, and you can all hear her and her wonderful explanations to the symbolism in these paintings. I'd also like to thank Nicholas for his welcome to country. It's wonderful to be welcomed to Darug country. And I would also like to pay my respects to the traditional owners of this country, to their elders past, present and emerging. And I would also like to mention and acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land where the National Museum resides, the Ngunnawal, the Ngunnawal, and the Ngambri peoples. It is also the country that I live and work on, and I pay my deepest respects to their elders. It is a real privilege to be here today. I'm not a curator. I am actually, I have a very different role at the museum. I am the head of visitor experience. So it is my job to work with a very large and multicultural team, including several First Nations hosts, to tell the stories that need to be told in the museum and that we can share. And most of all, we enjoy sharing the stories of our First Nations collection. It is incredibly important to share this work across the regions, to bring this work to places like this wonderful university, and it's a beautiful gallery, and I'd also like to mention how great the lighting is. I have opened this in other places, and our curators are going to be very happy to see how it's being done. I would also like to use the opportunity to highlight that the National Museum's touring exhibition program enables the National Museum to share Australian stories with remote, regional, and national audiences. The range of touring objects selected from the National Museum's National Historical Collection reflects the breadth and diversity of human experience of the Australian continent and its remarkable environments. Dr. Matthew Trinka said to this exhibition, "I'm delighted that these 8 magnificent paintings, all from the National Museum of Australia's collection, will be shared with Australians around the country after its very first successful showing at the National Art Museum of China in 2021. As you can see in these paintings, red symbolizes the blood of the sacred ancestors and of family lines that reach across the centuries, connecting the ancient to the contemporary. Aboriginal Australians are part of the oldest continuing culture on Earth and have lived on Australian continent for over 65,000 years. And I'll add to that what Margot interprets it for over 20,000 generations. That's amazing. These paintings are also the knowledge base for survival, where the best foods are, where there is water, and where there is shade. They are the conveyor of cultural values, including defining right and wrong behaviors, relationships, protocols for behavior in an unpredictable and often volatile environment. They are a mapping of the land. Red is the color of Australia's centre and the color that unites these desert artworks. Family, spirituality, country are expressed by these artists through the vibrancy of red and the colour of the earth beneath their feet. Red Heart of Australia presents a taste of the profound basis of Aboriginal culture, which is country. Thank you. Enjoy.
Thank you so much, Rani, for this wonderful speech. I actually we just actually have a surprising visitor today, who is artist Zhou Xiaoping. Because he came all the way from Melbourne, and I didn't know, and I thought someone was joking saying that Zhou Xiaoping is a very well-known Chinese-Australian artist who came to this country more than 30 years ago, and he spent almost 30 years on and off in Arnhem Land, working very closely with Indigenous communities, artists, and cultural creators. We had an exhibition 2 years ago, but because of COVID, so we had to move to online. You can still see his art in on our website. So welcome, Zhou Xiaoping. Thank you so much for making all the way here. We, as the Institute for Arts and Culture, we always connect art with music. So we never had opening without music. So today we are so privileged and thrilled to have Ethan and Tiana and his band, Alex Yankov and Ocean Bosnick, as well as our research fellow and musician, Dr. Nicholas Earn, to give us a music performance. Ethan is from the Bundjalung Nation from the northeast New South Wales. He is also Western Sydney University student of music. Inspired by his studies in world music at our Kingswood campus. We have 13 campuses. He has developed an interest in exploring new soundscapes with his digital skills and will perform today. They will together perform new work. So please welcome Ethan and the band team to give us music performance.
I just wanted to say thank you. My name is Ethan Chuma. We're just going to play a few pieces featuring, this first one's Nick and I. It's a little improvisation with the didgeridoo and the erhu. For this next piece, I'd like to introduce my fellow Western Sydney students, Alex Yankov on drums and Aishan Bazanich on guitar. This is another sort of piece that we're just going to, we were just kind of improvised recently, just a few melodies that we've created for it and some soundscapes that we've been working on. And now we have one final piece with Nick, which we learnt today with him right before, so I hope it sounds nice. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's so beautiful, and that is why it's inspired by world music. Just mentioned Nicholas, Dr. Nicholas, teaches world music as well. So I just want to thank you all. Lastly, especially Michelle, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Professor Michelle Trudgett, Ron Wong from National Museum of Australia, and our distinguished guests, external and internal. Thank you so much again for your support to art and love for art. Last but not least, I would like to thank my team, Ian, Lindsay, Nicholas, and our wonderful volunteers who are our PhDs and master students. Please enjoy drinks and light refreshments, as well as mingling and viewing the beautiful paintings. Thanks again, and have a good evening.